Hey everyone, it's Jamison Cable of the Land Between the Meadows, Kentucky History Podcast. I just want to say thank you for your support and listening to this episode. For all the updates on our podcast and YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kentucky History Channel, like and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at KY History Pod. If you're enjoying the podcast, give us a good rating and review on Apple Podcasts or the podcast platform that you're listening to. If you're looking for ways to support the podcast, an easy and simple way is to share it on Facebook or any other social media and tell your friends. You can also go to audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod and get a free book of your choice. And finally, you can visit patreon.com/KYHistoryPod if you want extra content from us. If you're already a patron, thank you for your support. It means so much to us. All the links I've mentioned are in the description of the podcast, so go check them out. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode. And remember, if it's not about Kentucky, it ain't worth a hill of beans. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Cable, and I wanted to talk real quickly to our little community about some things that you can think about or look forward to as far as our podcast goes. And when I talk about our little community, I look out at our actual community, and there's a lot of crazy things going on right now as far as being socially distant, not being able to do the things we typically do. Now, I got to start by saying I really put my foot in my mouth. If you remember, a few weeks ago on a podcast, me and Mr. Pope were talking and discussing about life in Eastern Kentucky and how me and my wife had this discussion about how what would our generation be remembered for? What is our generation's hard struggle? I was comparing it to my wife's grandmother, who had lived in a coal camp and really endured a lot of hardships, like many people have done in their lives. Of course, she brought it up. What is going to be our struggle? And here we are, a few weeks later, and our struggle is here. Life has changed a lot in a matter of about 7 or 8 days. I had many plans on things and events that were going to be going on, but now those aren't happening. Everything has been pushed aside, living in this bubble of a world that we have ourselves in. And not that we can't communicate or talk to each other or so forth, but it is different. I'm not able to go to work. I had a Google chat with a bunch of my students the other day, about 4 or 5 students. We had a Google chat, which is really weird and crazy. We did not expect to ever have to do that as a teacher, as those things go. The pickup list at Walmart, we're using those for sure. And it's this weirdly awkward situation where it's almost like you have to avoid people. But it's all in good faith, and it's all for a good cause. I cannot brag enough on our governor, Andy Beshear, and his demeanor, his lifting up, his uniting us. And it really goes to the motto of Kentucky: united we stand, divided we fall. He's bringing us together and in the hopes of helping us all out and keeping us all safe. As much as I would like to go and hang out with all my friends or go to school and see my students and interact with everybody like normal, I believe it's for the better. Hopefully we're able to flatten the curve and come out of this strong. Now, if you've been watching Governor Beshear's daily news conferences, you might have actually seen my kids. Since I'm here alone and my wife works in a hospital, I'm basically with the 3 kids on my own. And we do our work in the morning, we do our schoolwork, our NTI packets, and try to keep things as normal as possible for them. But Governor Beshear started a hashtag Team Kentucky and hashtag Together KY. And on Thursday morning, I decided to take a picture of my kids working on their NTI packets, and lo and behold, he shared it on the news conference, which was very unexpected. If you want to check out life in my world at the moment, you can go to Thursday the 19th video and you'll see it about 5 or 10 minutes in, if you want to. It was a proud dad moment, I guess, because my kids are now famous, of course. Let's continue to work together as Team Kentucky and try your best to social distance, video chat, call on the phone, and those avenues. And speaking again of our small little community here of the Land Between the Meadows, I want to talk about some iTunes reviews. We've got some great iTunes reviews. People are very positive, and in times like these when things are a little down, we're doing the same things over and over again, we're not really able to get out, we can kind of get down. And I'm sure it happens to you, it happens to me, it happens to Mr. Pope, it happens to all of us. And I tell you, when I go to and read these iTunes reviews, it makes me so excited and so happy to bring you more Kentucky history content. We have some great reviews from Adam in Madison County, Hey Adam, thanks for listening. We really appreciated the good words. And RF Raj and Anthony8423. I cannot tell you all how much we appreciate it. And to the many, many others that have left reviews, we appreciate your reviews too. So please keep them coming. Go to iTunes, give us a quick review. It means a lot. And also, don't forget to contact us through other media. Clint Jarborough, I hope I pronounced that right, in Louisville, sent us a message, told us how much we appreciate, or how much he appreciated the show, and gave us some great things to look into, like the Corbin race riots, which, guess what? It's on the list. We're going to get to it eventually. Then Molly Ann from Owensboro also gave us a shout on Facebook, which we talked about a few episodes ago. You can also go to Facebook and give us reviews on Facebook as well. Carol Eberly, and again, I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. Sometimes the Kentucky in me gets in the way. Left us a great review on our Facebook page. So my point about all this is, let's grow our community more. Don't forget to share our links out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm starting a new thing today with our Facebook page, where I'm going in and finding old news clippings from different newspapers around Kentucky, and I'm sharing them out. They're just little bits and pieces here and there, but hey, history is history, and it's always enjoyable. Another few things that we got going on is I'm going to set up a voicemail. All you have to do is go to anchor.fm and find our podcast, and you can send a voicemail to us. It'll be an audio recording, and we'll be able to then feature your voicemail or talk about your voicemail or some content you would like for us to cover. Another thing that's coming is I'm in the process of working on developing us a website. And on this website will basically be our podcast and maybe some more information we can provide, different sorts of media or different sorts of historical things that are going on, maybe even an events page that's going on around Kentucky, which at the moment there ain't much going on. Everything's canceled. So those are just some things to look forward to, and once I get those things done, I'll send them out and let everybody know our website and so forth. So I'm asking our small community here, go to iTunes, give us a review, go to Facebook, like our Facebook page, and give us a review on Facebook as well. If you have Twitter, follow us on Twitter. And one last thing before I wrap everything up and we get to the podcast, because that's what you're here for, not me rambling on. All of our plans, or our survey plans, are all still a go. Things are a bit different at the moment because I'm having to kind of reorganize or try to find a way to communicate. I know when we talked about stories from the past where I was going to talk to my grandma and some other people here locally in the community, but guess what? They're all kind of on the older end. So I'm going to have to figure out a way for them to possibly do it via phone and so forth, which is not that difficult, and we should still be able to go forth with them as well. Some of the book reviews that we were going to do, we're going to be done over the phone anyway. So all that stuff is still in the works. Me and Mr. Pope do want to apologize too, because probably the next few episodes are going to be via phone. We're going to have to do them via phone. We really don't have any place to meet. Schools, we can't go to the schools, we can't go to the library, and we live a good distance away. And I have 3 kids. I can't just haul them around as much either. But thanks again. So if the audio is a little different or anything like that, just let us know and we'll try our best to fix it. Again, thank you all so much for listening and sending us your positive messages. We really enjoy it and really helps us and drives us to do more and produce more content. So we got this episode right here. We're going to wrap up co-camps in Eastern Kentucky from Clyde Roy Pack. And then next week's episode, we're going to look at John C.C. Mayo, who I have enjoyed learning about and who everybody in Kentucky should honestly know about. But guess what? I don't think a lot of people do. Again, share us out. Let's let our little community grow. And hey, don't forget to be a good Kentuckian and watch out for each other. We're in this together. We'll get through it and we'll come out stronger in the end. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the podcast.
In the pines, where the sun never shines, you'll shiver when the cold wind blows. There's a grave in the pines, where the sun never shines. There's a grave that's shaded with the pines.
moving on to what they did for fun. And I find it very interesting because after talking to my grandma, she was talking about how much they had to do in Broadhead. Like she was talking about movies, dancing plays, all these things in Broadhead. And same thing, not as much, I guess, in this area, but they had 10-cent movies. That they had all
Crab
these
Orchard,
things.
the old
Crab
theater.
Orchard, yeah, was big. But what? And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question: what changed to where you had these small communities that were happening and had plenty of entertainment to where, like, you go to Broadhead now or Crab Orchard now, there ain't nothing there.
Oh, the tumbleweed going down the
Yeah,
streets.
there's nothing for anybody to do. Go to the park is about it, which is nothing wrong with that.
No.
But so another aspect, of course, in any Kentucky town you're going to get to is religion.
It's part of every culture.
Part of every culture. You're right.
In the world.
In the world, it stretches everywhere. And of course, and Thealka, they were Free Will Baptist, and that was built by the company, and the minister, provider, however you want to refer to him as,
Elijah Craig may have dropped a few off coming over the wilderness road.
was again provided by the company.
They wandered off from drinking bourbon.
Yeah. But the Christian ladies there were always referring to people, "You're as bad as old Hitler." That was one of the sayings they would go on.
You're talking about expressions. Remember when we were at Pine Mountain and we took that class where we went out in the woods identifying trees and botany and stuff, and they said this is the sarvis bush,
Yeah.
and it's called service is what they call it, sarvis, and it's because when it blooms in the spring it meant the preacher was coming around to the community, and that's when they buried the dead and people would get married, and you knew it because you didn't have a calendar evidently. You just know it by the way the sun sets or the way the trees bloom, and whenever you saw that particular tree, you knew it was time for the service for the minister. It's
pretty
cool.
It is cool.
Look at natural rhythms.
How
I think that's another thing that's caused the way we are.
We don't look at.
No, you look. You talk about Wendellberry and different people like that, and how that we've lost a lot of the culture of agriculture and of the simplicity of being tied to nature. I mean, people don't grow gardens anymore.
Nope.
They don't know. Who cares if it rains or sun shines or anything, But back then, it mattered.
It's very important,
Yeah, and they live with the rhythms of nature.
Well, a lot of
we don't live with the rhythms of nature.
No. A lot of these people in Eastern Kentucky, they farm.
They had gardens.
They had gardens here in their co-camps, but of course it was gardens enough for themselves.
Yes, right.
As far as Eastern Kentucky goes, it was all. It's all.
What'd you call the beans?
Shuck beans.
Shuck beans. Shuck beans and tomatoes.
And you think
brown beans,
if we want to go
beans, black beans,
if you want to go even farther back, you look at Native Americans. They were so in tune with the world, so in nature, and just I mean, we talked in one of our podcasts.
Remember the shelter at Pine Mountain Settlement School?
Yes,
that you go to in white, the direction that it faced, because it was like in the sun. It's on the western slant in the winter, and it would shine in there and keep it warm, and then they would move out of that as spring came.
Yeah. Think about the knowledge they had to have of just
and the awareness of
and
of course God created the nature and just the perfectness of nature. Really,
it is.
It's the beauty.
And then we got. No, this is a side note, but then you have companies and so forth, like some of these coal companies just destroying
this
stuff.
We'll
get to that. We'll get to that. That's another day, another podcast.
And then you got people shooting at you.
Yeah. What are you going to do then?
The thugs. In the name of the law.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to rob you and beat you up and burn your house down. I'm the law.
All right. We'll go on. We got an excerpt I'm trying to read here. We can't get through it. Although I've written often about the baptisms that I remember from my boyhood, I've never discussed foot washings. That's about to change. First of all, though, I'll admit that even though the free wills with whom I was raised were indeed foot washers, for some reason Dad forbade me from ever attending one of the yearly foot washing services held by the local congregation. Sadly, then, the following story is based on hearsay. I will state, however, that those I heard say it believed it wholeheartedly and told it for the truth. It's pretty much a given that back in the late 1940s, few of the rural Baptist churches had indoor plumbing, which quite naturally forced those in charge of the foot washing services to tote water from the nearest well or from a nearby creek. So, on this particular hot summer Sunday in the particular church, several number 2 wash tubs were filled in anticipation of the large number of believers who would come from far and near to participate in the ritual. While the service was proceeding nicely, 2 boys, probably about 10 or 12 years 12 years of age, decided they were bored with the whole thing, slipped quietly out a side door, and parked themselves in a restful repose on the shady side of the building, right under an open window. A few minutes later, one of the deacons inside decided it was time to empty a few of the pans of water. While he did, by simply holding them out the window under which the two young men were sitting and turning them upside down. Fortunately, the noise inside the church was louder than the startled, obscenity-filled comments that came from the two newly baptized, well-sprinkled, anyway, young men left sitting in a puddle of foot wash water. So again,
that's funny.
That is pretty good. You think about, and of course they're imitating Jesus washing the feet and so forth as the ritual. But I would say getting doused with foot washing water was not a pleasant experience.
Probably not.
Those are just some stories and some things that Focus or Clyde that talks about in his books. And if you want to check those out, please do so. They're probably at your local library, or you can get a library loan and get them to you if you want. I actually don't know for sure if Clyde is still alive or not. I should have probably checked that out. But the final thing I want to talk to before we close our Coal Camp talk is the newspaper. The Coal Camp Chronicles gives you many news excerpts from the time, and they talk about many different things. We already talked about how the newspaper were social media of the time. But also, I want to point out that the newspaper often at times was in with coal companies. Mm-hmm. And you would get these. There was an excerpt I read about the Northeastern Coal Company president at a meeting at the Rotary Club there in Paintsville, talked and bragged about how their mine stretched 820 miles, and if you stretch it out, they could make it to Cincinnati, and how it was so deep. And it's like he was using these comments to bolster this local pride. So then, in turn, you would get this harder labor. And I mean, these people were working more than necessary. But also, it talks about war bonds and how they were raising. They were I guess they were making this huge flag for the war effort in Eastern Kentucky. Very patriotic place. Another article from Paintsville, the Paintsville Herald, June 20th, 1918. Last Sunday, one of the largest gatherings in history of Thealka assembled to raise the large American flag the company and the men had bought for the occasion. The crowd gathered in the forenoon, and at 12:30 the flag was raised by Mrs. Carol Yeager and Margaret Dawson, while the Paintsville band played the Star-Spangled Banner. After the flag was raised, the crowd assembled on the hill where speeches were made by Honoree Jesse W. Turner, Manager H. Leveres, and Judge Fred A. Vaughn. It was a great day for Thealka, and the program was carried out in an interesting and pleasuring manner. Sterling C. Rice, a bookkeeper for the company, had the matter in charge, and all who attended were pleased with the entertainment. Dinner was served on the ground. It's so odd that I just find it again. You had this coal company, loads of money, they would then ask their miners who'd made nothing to pay war bonds, and then they would match the war bonds. And you know that they could have just plugged out, whatever war bonds is, they could have said, "Hey, we got this covered." But again, they asked so much from their employees, so much.
Who had so little.
So little. And again, you read these newspaper articles, accident after accident after accident. A big slate falls on old Timmy Smith, dead on scene. Again and again. Such unsafe.
Broken backs,
yes.
Black lung.
I found another insert that was very interesting called about the mine safety team. Winning their mine safety team won the contest of the state mine safety thing.
We only lost 12.
Yeah, we only lost 12.
Out of 15.
And they went to Lexington and they performed these tasks. They went through I guess you would call it a scene or a script, a script or a skit. Well, not necessarily a skit as a play,
right,
but like scenario. They went through scenarios, and their team got to go to, I forget where it was, but the national mine safety. I'll read the excerpt from the Paintsville Herald where the mine safety team won their competition. The Paintsville Herald, September 12th, 1929. The Northeast Coal Company First Aid Team, namely Johnny Preston, Delmas Preston, W.M. Wallen, Ora D. Spears, Russell Conley, and V.D. Picklesmere, team captain, winners of the Cup in the state meet at Lexington, August 31st, left Monday morning by motor for Kansas City, Missouri, to represent Kentucky in an international meeting. The Northeast boys came out with a score of 598 points out of a possible 600 points. This was an excellent score, and there were teams just a point or so behind, which goes to show that there are others working toward the same goal. While our boys are not natives of the Show Me states and know that they may not win the cup this time, they are, nevertheless, believers in Missouri's philosophy. This meeting is open to all mines and other industries that wish to compete. It is held annually, and in 1931, the meeting will be held in Lexington. The results of the contest will not be available until Saturday afternoon. Keep your eye on Kansas City and boost for your hometown team. It goes on to talk about
teaching my safety about the parakeet dies, the mule runs out and run like that.
Yeah, they got a timer. You got to be out here in 10 seconds. We can do it the fastest.
Yeah.
But again, it mentions strikes, and I want to find out more about this other excerpt. It talks about a trial. So they go on strike. There's newspaper clippings about this trial, and it talks about how this explosion went on in a mine and killed a bunch of the scabs. And they rounded up 5 to 10 or so miners and put them in jail and tried them and everything. One of the articles from the trial that happened during the strike goes as follows. The Paintsville Herald, February 1st, 1923. Jess Fletcher, one of the men charged with the explosion in Thealka mines last year, is now on trial here. He is one of 19 men indicted, most all of whom have confessed to the part they had in the explosion. Fletcher has not made a confession and claims his innocence, but the Commonwealth claims that the men who have confessed implicated him in the affair. He is being represented by attorney Blaine Clark of Inez and W.J. Ward of this city, while the Commonwealth is being assisted by attorney M.C. Kirk of the city and attorney Jack May of Prestonsburg. A jury from Lawrence County is hearing the evidence, and the Commonwealth closed its testimony Wednesday, and the case was ready to be submitted in the jury as the Herald goes to press. The other men indicted with Fletcher will be tried at a special term of the court, probably April 16th. And many of these other articles go on to talk more about what the trials were about, what was happening throughout the process of the trials. It goes over a few years. But again, something I really want to find out more about if ever I'm given the chance. They acquitted all the miners, and it's a very interesting thing. And from the excerpts, I can only get bits and pieces, but if I ever get the chance, if I ever have the time, the resources, I want to find out more about what happened with this trial. And maybe there's something out there more that I haven't found, but anyway. Lastly, I want to talk about LBJ coming to town, because he mentions LBJ coming to town and the whole war on poverty and so forth, and how time he didn't know they were poor, but growing up you look back and yes, people from Eastern Kentucky had little and were poor, but to the standard of financial money and things they may have owned. But again and again, and we'll close with this. Oftentimes Eastern Kentucky is stereotyped into this,
very much so,
to a figure of a dumb, illiterate, a poor person. And time again, it's happened. As far as back as LBJ, they come in and try to fix things, and oftentimes it's not a success. If you go now to Eastern Kentucky, you're going to find poor people. Now, is everybody coal miners? No, not anymore. Is the coal going away? Yes, it's going away. Is the landscape or the economics different? By far, it's different. You could argue that some of these programs are helping. Some people would probably argue that programs are not. But time and time again, you get people from outside coming in saying, hey, we're going to fix this, and then nothing gets fixed. So what I would like to see, or what I would hope maybe that people could get to, is instead of people from the outside coming in, maybe people from the inside saying, hey, let's fix this, and then bring in people from the outside.
Makes sense.
Build from within, because a lot of times you get an outsider coming in, y'all are just poor, let's just throw money at it. That's not always the solution. It needs to come from within.
That's right.
And it needs to come from a change of people just wanting to change and make a difference. Towards the end of the book, Clyde gives us an article of the Northeast Coal Company closing for the final time. The Paintsville Herald, January 31st, 1952. The last remaining mine of the Northeast Coal Company at Thealka ceased operations January 26th, ending the company's 47 years in coal production in Johnson County. The number 5 mine of the company was closed about 2 months ago, and the closing of the number 3 mine last Saturday necessitated the laying off of about 60 miners. It was announced by Fred Sherman, superintendent. The 2 mines, when working at capacity, produced about 300 tons of coal per day, he said. The company will continue the operations of 2 tipples in Thealka for coal produced by surrounding truck mines. All other machinery and steel will be removed from the premises. About 85 houses at Thealka have been sold to individuals during the past few years, and about 17 5-room houses are yet to be sold, Mr. Sherman stated this week. He added that the closing of the Thealka mine was caused by the poor quality of the coal, which made it unmarketable. Coal mining was started by the Northeast at Thealka in 1905. So that will end.
Yeah.
We'll end this one on the coal camps.
It's interesting.
Mr. Pope, any idea where we're going next?
Not at the moment.
Wherever the road takes us.
Wherever the road takes us, right.
All right.
If it's not about Kentucky, it's not worth a hill of beans.
That's right. So we'll get on it, and we'll be ready to go shortly. So thank you again for listening.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you next time.
All right.